Hi everyone, thank you for being here again with me today. I've put together this presentation where I intend to walk you through my personal prediction on what will be the future ecosystem of mobility. Okay, and how does that look like? As you all know, the panorama of mobility is continuously changing, and OEMs are facing a major challenge where they are being confronted with the need of rapidly shifting their mindsets to rewire and develop for service ecosystems rather than for service specific vehicle models as the industry was doing in the past. This industry has been going through this transition for more than a couple of decades now. So in order to achieve this, car makers need to start developing their own internal ecosystem of organizations. During this presentation, I'm going to dive into the future of cars and what are the recent technological offerings and trends that we are seeing, and how the vehicle industry should rapidly adapt with these changes or slowly be displaced by the upcoming new players of the industry. Okay, so I've structured this presentation with a primary focus on three aspects. I start with sensor suite, vehicle powering, and vehicle software and connectivity, and at the end I will dive briefly into how to get there. So while I am aware that the first two layers are both hardware, and I know that the trend and main focus of discussion today at companies and what everyone here is waiting to hear is the shift towards the software and connectivity capabilities, it is important to take a closer look at the changes that are occurring in the industry in these two spaces, since these two provide a good insight to predict where the market is going and where are the monetizable business models of the future. So I'll start with vehicle powering. Over the past 100 years, we've seen the vehicle evolving through history. However, the main framework has not really suffered that many changes through the years. To this date, the vehicle format has stayed the same, with a chassis, four wheels, and similarly structured passenger camera, a combustion engine, and a steering wheel. However, over the recent years, we have been seeing more relevant technological shift trends. One of them being the electrification, going from IC or internal combustion engines, which relied primarily on fossil fuel engines, and now moving to electric motors with lithium-ion battery cells, provisioning powering to the vehicle through electrification by storing electric energy and relying on this supply. Now, the industry is looking to sourcing this energy through other more sustainable and reliable technologies. So now let's take a closer look into what's driving the consumer's preference. While this scenario is not occurring as frequent within the EU, recent studies have shown that in the US and North American markets, electric vehicle owners are returning to internal combustion engines. This is happening due to several convenience implications that customers are having to deal with when handling an electric vehicle. Things like vehicle charging time, electrification service price variability are causing consumers to go back to IC vehicles. And while really this is not a threat to electric mobility, it certainly provides insight into the future concerns to be addressed as electric vehicles are introduced globally into the different markets. So companies need to start focusing on developing reliability and range. We are seeing the introduction of hydrogen combustion engines and hydrogen fuel cell batteries, which, while not being the most technically efficient solution, it certainly opens the possibilities to re-explore and restructure how are we sourcing our energy, and it attempts to invite the engineering community to reinvestigate alternative power systems for a vehicle. So the trend on this space is no longer electrification but sustainability. To put things in perspective, and I'm not going to dive into the details, but when comparing these three technologies, there are a few things that are important to notice, like the huge gap when it comes to overall energetic efficiency, and secondly, carbon emissions, and third, infrastructural costs. Now, what's calling everyone's attention is that the overall efficiency of hydrogen engines ranges optimistically between 30 and 35%. This value is rather closer to the energy production percentages of fossil fuel, internal combustion engines. However, companies like Toyota and Hyundai are still investing big sums on releasing such technologies. So when it comes to infrastructure costs, hydrogen production process is rather technically complex and hence expensive, in addition to the lack of available infrastructure like the one we have with ICEs. So storage and distribution costs are also higher. This means the scenario of monetizing hydrogen-motored cars is rather unrealistic if we were to follow the same monetization business models that we have had so far. So while it is not news that car manufacturers entered a race to deliver the most energy efficient and sustainable vehicle, it is key to note that the conversation is not anymore around e-mobility, but instead it's all about developing the most efficient powering model capable of hosting the autonomous vehicles of the future. The stakes of winning this race is winning the markets, and this will be key for what comes next. Part of the biggest challenges when introducing autonomous vehicles on the road is passenger security, pedestrian and other vehicle security, and of course liability. So in the recent years, we have also been seeing that gaining the trust of the public has become a very difficult task. And that's where environment monitoring and reliability is important. The current discussion is a debate between cost versus reliability. So cost versus reliability. Car makers have been juggling for some time already with the definition of the best balance within their sensor suite. As part of the recent technological offerings that we have in this space, we can mention 4 primary categories. We have LiDAR, radar, sonar, and camera. As you can see in this slide in your upper right hand, I've included some cost figures to provide better insight into this discussion. LiDAR becomes an important cost handicap when integrating these systems into the vehicle. However, the benefits are increased redundancy and more reliable automated navigation systems. The current debate with players like Tesla, who based its sensor suite capabilities in ultrasonic capabilities and camera, and who has been very clear on its position rejecting LiDAR as a possible solution to integrate into sensing systems, Waymo, on the other hand, is placing an important portion of the vehicle costs on LiDAR. And then we have Ford in the middle, who is trying to tackle an intelligent balance between the both offerings. So as we evolve on the development of self-driving car capabilities, infrastructure and legislation readiness will evolve with this. We will see a gradual transition towards full automation and autonomous vehicles that will start taking over the roads and over our cities. We will start gradually see how these technologies integrate into our lives, affecting our economies. We will start seeing more smart roads, more smart traffic lights, smart infrastructure. Vehicle ownership will also change drastically, diversifying the mobility market and shifting from manufacturing production, which was aiming to satisfy unitary customers, and now moving towards servitization, where the vehicle utilization is shared under a mobility as a service ecosystem, where rideshare services will start taking over our cities. The increase on availability of shared mobility services will reduce the vehicle demand drastically, dividing the market between service consumers and luxury vehicle acquisition. So imagine that with less cars on the road, the entire economic panorama will change drastically. To give you one example, the need for parking lots will be reduced to the point that this extra available parking land space might or will actually have a direct impact on real estate market. So when the eyes of the user are no longer on the road, where will they be now? Do you know what these companies have in common? They are all developing their autonomous vehicles. Although in reality it's not Google directly but Alphabet, its parent company, at the end these three key players have already started acting upon an opportunity which apparently Big Three and major automobile car makers are still second guessing. The vehicle business is no longer with retail, but mobility. The car mobility capabilities becomes a given, and the car instead plays a very different role to become the new mobile platform UI. However, the difference being that this new platform is a bridge between the physical and the virtual world. You might have heard this before, but cars are only used 5% of the time. 5%. So far, the car is an unused resource, the remaining 95%. With new available technologies, the vehicle has the capacity now to interact with virtually any entity with internet connectivity outside the vehicle. This opens a new broad umbrella of possibilities for monetizable business models. Allowing now in-car payments, the user will not only be able to pay for road-related items such as parking, fuel, or infotainment, but also there is an unexplored opportunity as the car will have now the ability to interact with any smart infrastructure. With marketing-related business models, user daily decisions, and behavior influenced by the on-the-road feedback provided by the car UI, the umbrella of possibilities is limitless. So basically, the car becomes now an extension of our mobile device, with the difference that this time it's not a device that we store in our pocket, but a room that connects us to the outer physical world. Data privacy issues will still be there to be resolved, but most likely will follow similar patterns as the ones we have seen with telephonic devices. So, how does the e-mobility ecosystem look like? Is it gonna be smart cars or smart cities? So in my opinion, it's neither. It's actually both. So while it is true that smart cars will continue covering a demand for luxury vehicle lines, it is also true that autonomous vehicles are now creating an entire new business model by occupying our cities with shared ride services. On one side, we will have luxury autonomous vehicles. This time, the car will have a different role on the user's life, becoming some sort of third room, a concept that we start hearing a little bit more about in this industry. So in this third room, where the user will have now the ability to perform daily tasks as if he or she was in her office or in her home, enabling the user to do more with her or his time. So in an industry where the monetization models are no longer at the dealership side, companies need to adapt to be able to shift to the production of this concept of software-defined vehicles. And thus that means automotive industry OEMs and tier suppliers have to enforce their software engineering power exactly about yesterday. For those ones who doesn't know what software-defined vehicles are, in the past or legacy models, the installed hardware defines and also limits the features and behavior of the vehicle. The software-defined vehicle development prioritizes continuous updated software, and this updated software defines feature and behavior of the vehicle as far as installed hardware supports it. With over-the-air capabilities, you no longer need to get the vehicle into the workshop to continuously make useful software updates available to the consumer. Now you don't need to take the consumer back to the dealership. So this means that companies need to focus on developing robust connectivity architectures to allow a lifetime of updates. Keeping the hardware design stable is important in order to be able to integrate continuously developed evolving software branches. This will become key for the strategy that follows ahead. So, if companies keep developing and releasing different hardware design versions each and every year, they won't be able to deploy the same software to different hardware variants. Even with semantic versioning, they would end up with multiple unsustainable software branches, and that same unsustainability would cause it to be impossible to maintain and, more importantly, to keep cyber secure and safe. So regulatory compliance would definitely be compromised. Okay. The baseline for these software-defined vehicles is solid connectivity architecture, as well as the vehicle operating system. And when we talk about operating system, here we refer to the ecosystem that supports you to develop and to integrate the user applications that consist on the runtime elements, commonly called the base layer, and consists of a software factory that supports you in developing and integrating the application functions into the base layer. Companies must focus on developing their organizational structures and methods. And we are already walking that path, developing strategies like picking the right DevOps topologies, developing the CI/CD pipelines, moving towards microservice platforms, and developing over zonal architectures. So all in all, it's all about software and adapting to become a hybrid/manufacturing/software production company. Since we know that this is just the beginning. So what we have today, it seems to be challenging already, but what we will see in the future on a software perspective is much more than what we have today. And we will need much more and additional features or capabilities to cope with that. So, in order to be able to develop the software, car makers need to define the scope and the vision for their software endeavor. So companies need to start adapting and refining their software and development strategy to be able to cope with the so many developing branches or layers of automotive software that needs to come all together to deliver this fully connected vehicle experience that the market is not only expecting but demanding. Okay, so as a high-level view, I'm trying to represent here a quick draft of the base layers of this connected vehicle ecosystem as we have it today. It goes from the in-vehicle software, software for switches, the HSM firmware, hardware security modules, software for microcontrollers, the microprocessors, and the connectivity backend. And then there's the application and features layer, including automated driving capabilities, which is really what makes the in-vehicle experience. And then we have the HMI, which is key in the way you interact with your driver. Okay, then we have the system functions to manage the in-vehicle software. This comprises the connectivity to cloud, which is more than just data collection and diagnostics, but it's also including software remote update. And then we have the infrastructure, and here is where standardization is key. We have a lot of standards, and the most relevant one, and the present at this moment, is AUTOSAR, which is starting to become an industry standard due to the reduced or actually null alternatives that offer the same or similar capabilities to enable companies to integrate the 4 layers. When you think of all the software production that each of these components require, yes, you need a solid base software architecture, but more importantly, companies need to start developing the required competencies to manage their continuous flow of evolving and shifting scope. So it's all about agile, right? We'll get there when we get there. Bad news, it's really not anymore. This is not enough, and yes, agile practices help provisioning the framework for continuous development, but it's really more than that already. When it comes to delivery, right, OEMs need to pick and plan the concept and build clear roadmaps on how and when they plan to get there. This needs really careful planning and cautious strategy for organizational development. Organizational architecture comes key, and OEMs need to, at the same time, while developing their next version of the mobility offerings. The second parallel hidden challenges for OEMs is that they need to develop the next version of the company itself. They need to move fast to re-engineer the strategy and engineering engines. It's visible. In all this, it all comes to methods and tools, and again methods and tools, right? So some companies are building their methods and tooling organizations, a centralized team that manages and has ownership over the provisioning of all software licenses and the development of the processes and methods to use and integrate them. So what could go wrong, right? Well, wrong again, at least in my opinion. While it is really not a terrible idea, it is hard to safeguard the integrity, freedom, and autonomy of your engineering organizations and ensure their growth and development stays within their reach when they have such a strong dependency to a single team. You'd leave the entire company and the company's vision vulnerable to the vision, capacity, politics and mindset or culture of a single team. So, in my opinion, any company who intends to adopt this strategy must seek and prioritize to manage this through an external party with clear SLAs, or at least handle this through decentralized internal service provider organizations. Car makers must adapt their processes, their culture, and management practices to align to the decentralized, iterative, and continuous evolution of software-defined. So this heads up is not only about the technical aspects, but it's also about processes, culture, and management practices. So how do we get there? First of all, make sure that top management understands the challenge and is capable of leading the way. All the tools available, all the technologies, processes, methods, onboarding the right talent and skill set, having all the technical capabilities is not enough under the wrong leadership. Applying rigorous scrutiny through your top and middle management right now is fundamental for OEMs if they want to survive this historical transition to the new era. Inclusion is no longer an option, but a must-have in order to survive what comes ahead. Number 2, establish your strategy for software development services. So you certainly need a powerful and competent software development service provisioning strategy. Unlike any healthy economy, you must avoid corner control, which is really another way of saying monopoly. By having more than one organization or partner for this purpose, it will also help you to dodge bottlenecks. So these methods and toolings organizations must be a supportive element to define methods to integrate your hardware and your software organizations. These teams should partner with your safety and cybersecurity teams to make sure to foolproof your development processes. Building the DevOps pattern, defining the proper tools, workflow management, configuration management, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous deployment, feature-based development, processes for branching and merging, anything pretty much needed for the software development. Number 3, your delivery framework. You must have the whole company speaking the same language and dancing at the same tempo. Hand-holding your organization to transition and integrate them into this new global delivery framework is part of that second parallel hidden challenge that I mentioned earlier that OEMs need to overcome and deliver as part of this industry digitalization challenge. Number 4, run a realistic hiring strategy and take your time to grow. So having many software developers on board does not automatically make you a ready software company. Growing always takes time, so make sure you allow your processes to change rapidly. Remember this DevOps concept, which says that everything is code, and this means don't expect to stick too much or for a longer period of time to your processes. Make sure you have the right staff and the right management to define the appropriate steps at the appropriate moment. Building the right offering and the right organization for either case, everyone is really running a little bit late on this. So now more than ever, both require the right culture and the right mindset to get there. So everything that we covered earlier is valid as of today. And yet, tomorrow might not be the current scenario anymore. The industry is moving at such a fast pace that if we are planning to deliver and to be there by 2025, the scenery might already be so different that we will continue to play catch up for the next decade or so, if we are still even playing at all. So if the game board is always shifting and the rules are always changing, what can we do to keep playing? It's not about the rules, and it was never about the board or its pieces. So it was always about the players. Inclusion is not about numbers. It's not about hiring more women and keeping them for the metrics, or raising numbers to reflect more people from different races, genders, or ages in management. It's definitely not about having less white people in your leadership positions. It's not about this. Inclusion is not quantitative, it's qualitative. It's about mindset. The right mindset is that which understands that while there are wrong mindsets, there is not a single right mindset. So think of this next time that you are interviewing for the right mindset. Inside each of your organizations, chiseling your collaboration behaviors starts during your interview process and even further while documenting the required profile for your different openings. Inclusion is what will give you the upper hand in this game. Also think of that the next time that someone is being spoken over during a conversation you are being part of. Inclusion does not end where the hiring process is done. So this brings me to the end of my presentation, and I will close with a single one last remark. Inclusion is no longer an option, and it definitely should become the next item in your agenda. Thank you very much.